If there were ever a movie franchise about the urban development of U.S. cities from the Civil War to the present, Kansas City would be the only one where the sequels keep getting worse. It's a city that whispers stories of its golden days, yet its current state feels like an unfinished novel. They used to say, if you want to taste America, go to Kansas City. But right now, it feels more like, if you want to taste America, don't go to Kansas City. But what happened? How did a city that once stood shoulder to shoulder with America's greatest cities end up in such a predicament? To understand where Kansas City stands today, we first have to go back to the beginning. The origins of Kansas City can be traced to the early 1800s, when French fur traders settled along the Missouri River. In 1821, the region was designated as the Town of Kansas, named after the Kansa Native American tribe, and was incorporated as a city in 1850. This name was chosen 4 years before the Kansas Territory was officially created, leading to some confusion that necessitated the eventual renaming to Kansas City in 1889. The city's strategic location at the confluence of the Missouri and Kansas rivers became a blessing, as it made it an important trading post and frontier town, particularly during the western expansion of the United States. But that blessing also became a double-edged sword, a sword that almost stifled the growth of this young city, even before it had a chance to blossom. The trouble began when Kansas was established under the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed settlers to decide whether it would be free or slave through popular sovereignty. This led to violent conflicts known as Bleeding Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions.
Hi, my name is Matthew Pinsker. I'm a historian, and here are a few things you need to know to sound smart about Bleeding Kansas. The term Bleeding Kansas was popularized in the 1850s by newspapers like Horace Greeley's New York Tribune. It referred to the violence that erupted in the Kansas Territory in the middle of the decade.
It was devastating to say the least, not just for the city, but for the nation as well, as the events of Bleeding Kansas would go on to serve as a precursor to the American Civil War and, most importantly, the Battle of Westport. We'll discuss that in a moment. Meanwhile, the majority of Kansas favored a free state, and by January 29, 1861, Kansas was officially admitted into the Union as a free state. The Civil War era brought significant turmoil to the city, as it was situated between pro-slavery Missouri and free state Kansas. The Battle of Westport in 1864 was one of the largest battles fought west of the Mississippi River. Nevertheless, after the war, the city experienced rapid growth fueled by the expansion of railroads and its burgeoning cattle industry. Interestingly, it was also during this time that the city became known for its stockyards and meatpacking industry, which played a crucial role in its economic development. By the early 20th century, Kansas was in its golden age. It had emerged as a cultural hub, particularly for jazz music. The city was home to legendary musicians like Charlie Parker and Count Basie, who contributed to its vibrant music scene. Moreover, the city is recognized for having more fountains than any other city in the world except for Rome, earning it the nickname City of Fountains. Pendergrass Concrete Company placed the city in the spotlight as it aided in the construction of many of the city's landmarks during the 1920s and 1930s. The Country Club Plaza, which opened in 1925, was one of the first shopping centers in America designed to accommodate automobiles and remains a key attraction today. Kansas was indeed the jewel in the crown of the Midwest. But as we'll see, one swallow does not make a summer. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and the cracks in Kansas City's foundation began to appear. Like many American cities, Kansas City was hit hard by suburbanization. The post-World War II boom saw families flocking to the suburbs, leaving the urban core to wither. Factories closed, jobs disappeared, and neighborhoods fell into despair. Need I say more? It was a disaster. The city that once bustled with life now seemed like a ghost town waiting for the wind to blow through. But the biggest blow came with the rise of highways and air travel. What did this mean for Kansas? It's simple. Kansas City's central location, once its greatest strength, became less important in an era when planes could take people and goods anywhere in hours. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. Or was it? Sorry, that wasn't it. The straw that broke the camel's back was racial segregation.
The city has a racial dividing line that has left a legacy of segregation. KCTV5's Casey Jones is taking a closer look at how the line was drawn and what's being done to integrate and develop neighborhoods.
From east to west, a clear divide.
I think if you look at the quality of buildings, infrastructure, long-term investment, it's different on one side versus the other. So the divide that we have at Troost continues to be a significant problem for us.
Mayor Quentin Lucas knows Troost Avenue as the racial dividing line.
You would think that after being at the center of various racial battles and being a free state for over a century, Kansas wouldn't be a setting for another racial saga. But it was. As a matter of fact, Troost Avenue, named after Dr. Benoit Troost, became a significant dividing line in the city. I will explain. Remember earlier in the video when I mentioned that following the Bleeding Kansas conflict, Kansas joined the Union of Free States. However, what I didn't mention was that joining the Union didn't quite heal the rift created during the Bleeding Kansas conflict. You see, by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, affluent white residents inhabited neighborhoods west of Troost, while black residents began to settle east of it, particularly as they sought affordable housing and access to public transportation. Real estate developer J.C. Nichols added fuel to the fire by using restrictive covenants to ensure that properties west of Troost remained exclusively for white residents. This practice prevented black families from moving into these neighborhoods and induced panic selling among white homeowners when black families moved nearby, a tactic known as blockbusting. By 1920, approximately 75% of the population east of Troost was African American. The Kansas City School Board contributed significantly to the segregation by drawing school district boundaries along Troost Avenue. This decision effectively ensured that schools west of Troost remained predominantly white, while those east were overcrowded and underfunded. This divide mirrors the systemic inequalities that significantly contributed to the economic disparities hindering investment in urban areas. The legacy of redlining and discriminatory housing policies resulted in disinvestment and deterioration of neighborhoods that were once vibrant economic centers. In a little over 2 decades after its golden age, Kansas City found itself sidelined, like a forgotten book gathering dust on the shelf. Where there is a will, there is a way. In the early 2000s, Kansas City tried to reclaim its former glory. Investments poured into downtown, with projects like the Power and Lights District, Sprint Center, and Union Station renovations. For a while, it seemed like the city was on the rebound, and that their efforts were just about to lay golden eggs. But it didn't happen. You know how they say the difference between try and triumph is just a little umph. Well, maybe it doesn't apply to all cases, because for Kansas City, that umph was by no means little. As a matter of fact, the revitalization efforts failed to address the deeper issues that plagued the city: poverty, crime, racism, and a lack of economic diversity. What the city ended up doing was patching a sinking ship with duct tape, because the very projects meant to save the city may have widened the gap between its haves and have-nots. Then there is the problem of the housing affordability crisis. Rents are skyrocketing while wages remain stagnant. Families are forced to spend more on housing and less on everything else. Gentrification has displaced longtime residents, turning historic neighborhoods into pricey enclaves. However, let's not totally shade Kansas City with a black crayon, because it's not all bleak midwinter in Kansas. I mean, there are areas where it excels spectacularly, one of which is tourism.
Battering 24 million tourists made their way to Kansas City last year, pumping billions of dollars into our economy in the process.
New here at 6:41, Action News reporter Brian Abel breaks down how it's saving you money. Brian?
Yeah, good news all around. According to Visit KC, that's who's behind this research, it means if you live in the metro, you paid less in taxes, about $525 less per household to be exact, because of what visitors spent.
In 2024, the city ranked prominently in tourism, being recognized as a top travel destination by several prestigious publications. The Wall Street Journal placed Kansas City 5th on the list of 10 best places to visit in 2024. It was also featured in the New York Times' 52 Places to Go in 2024. As if that's not enough, the city hosts major events and celebrity visits, including Taylor Swift's concert tour and the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl run. But one thing about tourism is that if your city is not thriving in all sectors, it can come back to haunt you. Even though it brings in money, it often creates an illusion of prosperity. An over-reliance on tourism can mask the city's deeper problems, and that is exactly what is happening in Kansas. So, the big question here is, can a city truly thrive if it's only surviving on visitors? I'll let you answer that in the comments below. The good news is that this city still has a lot going for it, from its rich history to its passionate residents, but turning things around will require bold action and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Kansas City needs to invest in its people, creating opportunities that benefit everyone, not just the wealthy few. It needs to fix its crumbling infrastructure, tackle crime, and make housing affordable again. And perhaps most importantly, it needs to embrace change. The city's story is far from over. It's a city at a crossroads, with the potential to rise again or fade into obscurity. The choice is up to its leaders, its residents, and yes, even its tourists. Rome wasn't built in a day. Kansas City's revival will take time, effort, and unwavering commitment. But if there's one thing we know about this city, it's that it has a fighting spirit. Make sure to check out other videos on our channel, like and share this video to spread awareness. If you haven't already, subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on our future content. Thank you for your support. This is World Tour. See you in our next video.